There are moments in life when the weight gets too heavy, when even your own reflection feels like a stranger, and the silence around you starts to scream. It's in those hours, especially at night, when the world goes quiet but your soul doesn't, that the struggle feels most real. If that's you, sitting in that silence, eyes wide open while your heart whispers for relief, you're not alone. Everyone has chapters they don't read out loud. You might look around and think others have it all together, while you're piecing your life back with trembling hands. But what if the darkness you're standing in isn't a sign that you're lost, but that you're planted, ready to rise? Tonight isn't just another end to a difficult day. It's an opportunity, an invitation. When the world sleeps, the sky opens, and in that sacred stillness, you can speak, not to people, but to the one who already knows what you're too tired to explain. You don't need fancy words. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. There's a story of a man who had nothing left, not even hope, and in his despair he cried out in the middle of the night, not to be saved from hardship, but to be given the strength to stand again. And slowly, like the dawn that always follows darkness, his life began to shift, not all at once, but step by step, not because the world around him changed, but because he changed how he stood in it. This is your night, not to fix everything, but to begin. Say a prayer, sit in silence, let your tears speak. Take one small step tonight. You've been fighting for so long on your own. Now try something different. Surrender, not to the pain, but to the hope that refuses to die inside you. Because struggle doesn't mean you failed. It means you're still trying. And trying tonight is more than enough. Everyone faces silent battles. Yours doesn't make you broken. There's something we often forget in the rush of life. Everyone is carrying something. The person who smiles the widest might be the one who cries the hardest when no one is watching. The strongest person in the room may be holding back years of pain behind calm eyes. Struggles don't always wear a visible face, and wounds don't always bleed where the world can see them. So when you're going through something that feels unbearable, when it feels like you're the only one sinking while everyone else seems to be swimming, remind yourself of this truth. Your struggle doesn't make you broken, it makes you human. There's a certain heaviness that comes with thinking you're the only one who's falling apart. That isolation, the voice in your head that whispers, "What's wrong with you?" or "Why can't you just be normal?" That voice lies. It lies because it assumes everyone else has it together, but they don't. We just get very good at hiding it. Society teaches us to keep our pain private, to present only the highlight reels of our lives, to pretend everything is fine, even when we're barely breathing. But behind the polished surfaces, there are stories. Stories of fear, heartbreak, trauma, guilt, and doubt. Yours is not an exception. You are not a malfunction in an otherwise perfect system. You are part of the human story, and struggle is written into our pages. Think of the people you admire most. Many of them didn't become who they are because life was easy. They were shaped in fire, by loss, by confusion, by failure, and by pain. Some of the deepest wisdom and most profound growth comes from seasons that feel like they're meant to destroy us, but they don't. Instead, they strip away what doesn't matter, leaving behind the core of who we are, and that core is stronger than we ever imagined. Still, when you're in the thick of it, none of that feels comforting. You may be tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that sinks deep into your bones. You might be wondering what the point is anymore. You might feel ashamed of where you are in life, or feel like you've wasted years. You might be angry with yourself for decisions you made, or didn't make. And in that space, it's easy to believe the narrative that you're somehow defective, that maybe you just weren't made strong enough for this world. But let me tell you something important. Feeling weak doesn't mean you are weak. Struggling doesn't mean you're failing. And being lost doesn't mean you're beyond saving. In fact, some of the most transformative turning points in life begin right at the edge of despair. When the walls feel like they're closing in, and everything you tried has failed, you finally find yourself face to face with your truth. Not the version you show others, but the raw, trembling truth of who you are beneath all the layers. And that person, that real, weathered, broken open person, is still worthy, still loved, still capable of rebuilding. What we fail to understand sometimes is that struggle isn't a punishment, it's a process. It's the difficult, messy, uncomfortable middle of a story that's still being written. And just because you're in the middle of the storm doesn't mean the sun won't rise again. Just because things are dark now doesn't mean they'll stay that way forever. There's a quiet strength that comes from surviving things you thought would break you, a power that only comes from continuing to breathe through pain, to stand when your knees are shaking, to speak even when your voice trembles. And more often than not, the people who carry the heaviest burdens are the ones with the softest hearts. They're the ones who notice when others are hurting, the ones who reach out, who understand the weight of silence, the ache behind a smile. Why? Because they've been there. You're becoming one of those people, not because life has been kind, but because you've kept going even when it wasn't, quote, 10. The night holds power. Use it to speak, reflect, and rise. There is something deeply sacred about the night. When the world slows down and the noise begins to fade, a different kind of stillness settles in. It's a stillness that can be terrifying for some, because it brings everything we've been avoiding to the surface. But it's also a stillness that holds incredible potential. While everyone else is asleep, while lights and windows go dark and conversations quiet down, something ancient happens. The soul begins to speak, and more importantly, the soul begins to listen. During the day we wear masks, we play roles, meet expectations, move from task to task, and rarely stop to ask ourselves how we truly feel. The light of day demands action, performance, presence. But at night, there are no eyes watching. There's no pressure to smile, no performance to maintain. It's just you and the thoughts that often get drowned out in the chaos of life. That's where the power of night lives, in its honesty. It doesn't ask you to be strong. It simply invites you to be real. There's a certain kind of clarity that comes only when the world sleeps. The kind of clarity that cuts through the distractions and busyness. At night you can look at your life without filters. You can examine your heart, not in the light of other people's opinions, but in the quiet truth of your own awareness. It's where you begin to hear the questions you've silenced all day. Am I truly happy? Why does this hurt so much? What am I running from? And even if you don't have answers, just asking the question starts something inside you, something necessary. The night also offers a different kind of intimacy. It's the perfect time to speak, not just to yourself, but to the one who already knows the mess inside your heart. There's no need for rehearsed prayers or perfect words. In fact, some of the most powerful moments happen when you're too tired to speak properly, and all you can manage is a whisper, or even a tear. That counts, that reaches further than you realize. It's in those unfiltered, exhausted, vulnerable conversations that healing begins. The quiet of the night becomes a shelter. It gives you space to reflect, not in a way that beats you down with regret, but in a way that gently pushes you toward truth. Maybe you remember something painful, or maybe you begin to see patterns you didn't notice before. That awareness is part of the healing. When we reflect in the silence, we reclaim pieces of ourselves that got lost in the noise, the parts we buried, the dreams we dismissed, the emotions we ignored because they were too heavy to carry while functioning during the day. At night, those things come back, not to torment us, but to invite us to deal with them, to finally feel what we were afraid to feel. And then after the reflection, after the whispers and the tears, the night gives one more gift, the chance to rise. Maybe not in action yet, but in spirit. It's where resolve is born, not loud, dramatic resolve, but the quiet kind that forms deep inside and says, I can't stay like this. It doesn't mean everything changes at once, but it does mean something has shifted inside you. You feel the nudge, the beginning of a decision to try again, to trust a little more, to take even one small step. The night then isn't just a place of darkness, it's a place of potential, a blank page, a mirror, a place where transformation begins, not through loud declarations, but through silent surrender, the kind that feels small but holds more power than we realize. The night doesn't ask for perfection, it only asks that you show up, fully, honestly, willing to listen, willing to speak, willing to be seen by the one who never sleeps. There is strength in surrender, not to defeat, but to the one who sees you. Surrender is a word often misunderstood. It's commonly associated with weakness, with giving up, with being defeated. But true surrender, especially the kind that happens between the soul and its creator, is not weakness at all. It is one of the most courageous acts a person can do. It's not about throwing your hands in the air in despair. It's about placing your pain, your confusion, your exhaustion in the hands of the one who already knows what you're carrying, and has never stopped watching over you. Many of us go through life believing we have to handle
handle everything ourselves. We're taught to be independent, to be strong, to solve problems on our own, to tough it out, to never let anyone see us cry. So we walk around with this enormous weight on our shoulders, trying to manage emotions, regrets, fears, responsibilities, and disappointments all at once. We tell ourselves, "I've got this," even when we clearly don't. And over time that pressure breaks us down, not because we're weak, but because we were never meant to carry everything alone. Surrender is not a sign that you failed. It's a sign that you finally understand where true strength comes from. It's a quiet declaration that says, "I can't do this by myself anymore, and I don't have to." It's what happens when you stop pretending you're okay and start admitting your need for something greater. It's not resignation, it's trust. Trust that even when you're lost, you are not alone. Trust that your cries are heard. Trust that there is a purpose behind the pain, even if you can't see it yet. The act of surrender usually doesn't happen in public. It doesn't come with grand announcements or visible proof. Often it happens in the dark, when no one is around. Maybe it's late at night, and you're sitting alone in your room, heart heavy with things you haven't told anyone. Or maybe you're lying awake, feeling like the world is moving on without you. And in that vulnerable moment, something inside you shifts. You lower your defenses, not because you've lost the fight, but because you're ready to stop fighting the wrong way. There's a different kind of strength that begins to rise in that place. A strength that doesn't come from pretending to be fine or pushing through the pain, but from knowing where to place your burdens. When you surrender, not to despair, but to the divine, you allow yourself to be held, and in that space healing begins, slowly, gently, authentically. It's not always visible to others, but something inside begins to realign. The chaos doesn't vanish overnight, but your heart starts to breathe again. You start to realize you're not expected to have all the answers. You're only expected to be honest about your need for help. When you surrender, you open the door to a kind of peace that doesn't make sense from the outside. A peace that says, even if everything is falling apart around me, I can still find rest in the one who controls it all. That peace doesn't erase pain, but it changes how you carry it. It transforms your posture from one of resistance to one of acceptance, not acceptance of defeat, but of the fact that you were never meant to carry your struggles alone. You were always meant to lean on something greater. This kind of surrender takes courage. It takes humility. It takes the willingness to let go of control, to admit that you don't have it all figured out, and to believe that you're still worthy of love, mercy, and grace even in your lowest moments. It's not an end. It's a beginning, the beginning of a different kind of journey, one led not by fear or pressure, but by trust. Small acts of faith done consistently can rebuild a life. When life feels broken, overwhelming, or hopeless, the idea of transformation can seem impossible. You may look at the mess around you, or within you, and wonder how anything good can come from it. The weight of past mistakes, the depth of emotional wounds, or the years spent stuck in cycles of pain, can make healing feel like a distant dream. But what if rebuilding your life doesn't start with massive changes or dramatic decisions? What if it begins with something much smaller, quieter, and more consistent? Faith is often misunderstood as something that must be loud, perfect, or unwavering. But the truth is, the most powerful form of faith is often quiet and persistent. It shows up in the tiniest decisions, the everyday moments when you choose hope over despair, effort over apathy, belief over doubt. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be a saint. You just need to start with what you have, where you are, and take one step at a time. Imagine a person walking through a desert. The heat is unbearable, the thirst is real, and the end seems nowhere in sight. They may be tempted to collapse, to give up, to believe that this is where the journey ends. But if that person just keeps walking, one slow step after another, they will eventually reach shade, then water, then a new landscape. Life is like that. You don't need to sprint, you just need to keep going. And that motion begins with small daily acts of faith. Maybe it's waking up and deciding to pray, even if you feel distant and tired. Maybe it's refusing to speak harshly to yourself for one more day. Maybe it's reaching out to someone you trust. Maybe it's choosing not to give in to the same temptation that's tripped you up before. These may seem like minor things, especially when your whole world feels like it's falling apart. But these small acts are bricks. Lay one brick a day, and you're rebuilding something far stronger than what you lost. The beauty of consistency is that it works beneath the surface. You might not see the change right away. You might even feel like nothing's working. But over time, faith leaves fingerprints on your heart. It rewires your thinking, softens your pain, and begins to make space for growth. You begin to notice moments of peace where there used to be panic. You begin to feel a sliver of strength where there used to be exhaustion. It's not always dramatic, but it's always real. Even when you falter, even when you skip a day or fall back into old patterns, the path isn't erased. Faith doesn't demand perfection. It asks for return. It welcomes you back again and again with open arms. The goal isn't to never fall. The goal is to keep getting up, to trust that your small efforts are seen, counted and multiplied in ways you don't yet understand. These acts of faith also begin to rebuild your identity. You start to see yourself not as a failure, not as someone permanently stuck, but as someone who is becoming. You're not defined by your worst day or your deepest wound. You're defined by the quiet courage it takes to believe that better is possible, even when the evidence is thin. And you're not alone in the process. Every time you choose to act in faith, you are aligning yourself with a strength beyond your own. You're placing your trust not in outcomes, but in the one who sees the entire path, past, present, and future. You may not understand how the pieces fit, but with each small step they begin to form a pattern, one that leads not just to healing, but to something more beautiful than you imagined. Begin tonight, not tomorrow, with one heartfelt step toward healing. There's something powerful about the present moment, the nano, not next week, not when things calm down, not when you feel more ready, or more spiritual or more put together, just now exactly as you are. Healing up often feels like something that belongs in the future, something we think will start when we feel stronger or more in control, but that mindset becomes a trap. We keep postponing our peace. We keep waiting for the perfect conditions to begin, not realizing that those conditions rarely come. The perfect moment to change never arrives, because the perfect moment is already here right now. Tonight has a kind of stillness that invites something different. It's when the distractions quiet down, when the masks slip off, and when you're finally able to sit with yourself, and maybe for the first time in a long time, you're able to admit the things you've been avoiding, the weight you've been carrying, the tiredness that runs deeper than your body. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to have the answers. You just need to be honest. That honesty is the first step, a step that doesn't need applause, a plan, or even understanding. It only needs truth. Healing begins in that truth. It doesn't wait for the pain to disappear. It begins right there, in the middle of it. It doesn't require a full transformation overnight. It begins with the decision to stop running from yourself, to stop numbing, avoiding pretending. One heartfelt moment of surrender can open doors that years of denial never will. Just a moment where you turn your face upward and say, I don't know how to fix this, but I'm ready to start. That moment matters more than you realize. Sometimes the smallest step can be the most significant. Sitting in silence and allowing yourself to feel, saying a prayer that feels shaky or broken, writing down the things you've been too afraid to say out loud, forgiving yourself for something you've carried too long. These steps may not look impressive from the outside, but they are acts of courage. They are declarations that you still believe healing is possible, even if only a little, even if only enough to whisper it. And it has to start somewhere. Why not tonight? Not because tonight is more special than any other night, but because if you don't start now, you'll keep waiting. You'll keep saying tomorrow, while your soul keeps aching. Healing doesn't come from waiting. It comes from choosing to move forward, even when everything inside you is tired. Choosing to believe there is something on the other side of this pain. Choosing to meet your creator in your weakest state. Trusting that he understands your tears more than your words. The weight you carry may not disappear immediately. The struggle may still be there in the morning, but tonight can shift something deep within you. It can mark a change in direction, from hiding to seeking, from breaking to building, from despair to the faintest flicker of hope. That flicker is enough. That flicker is enough. That flicker is where fires are born. This step doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be visible to anyone else. You don't need to post about it, or explain it, or justify it. This step is between you and the one who already knows every scar, every regret, every unanswered prayer. And he's not waiting for the perfect version of you. He's waiting for the real you. The tired, confused, questioning, hurting version. The one who still dares to believe, even if just barely, that healing could begin with a single step taken tonight.